This is Abundantly Clear, a Malorie Nicole podcast designed to help you further understand the concept of abundance and put it into practice to build the business and life of your dreams. We'll be breaking barriers of conditioned belief, the standard rules of marketing, and empowering you to achieve real success, allowing you to make a greater impact and live a fulfilled, purpose-driven life with ease. Welcome to the conversation, the stories, the science, and the synergy of living life abundantly clear. Now, on to today's episode.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Abundantly Clear. Today, I'm going to be breaking down a tool to help you moving forward in your business and in your life. So a lot of these episodes that you've been hearing on this podcast go into a lot of stories of entrepreneurs and people that have really stepped into their power in their business, and in doing that, deleting a lot of old programming that wasn't serving them and wasn't helping them expand into their next level. So we're always thinking, but the thing about the fact that we're always thinking, that sounds redundant, is that we're always thinking the same stinking things that we were thinking yesterday or the day before that or the day before that or the day before that until we create a pattern interrupt. So this is why a lot of our belief systems that we are still walking around with every single day, whether you are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, a lot of this stuff actually came from a little story or a little experience that you had when you were a child, and you programmed a thought or a belief that has stayed with you for a really long time. And when you think about this concept, it's kind of crazy that you could be a 45-year-old still holding on to beliefs that you had created from being a very young child. When we say that out loud, it almost seems like a joke, but that is the reality of how our brains work. That's the simplicity of it. And the really amazing part about this is that we get to go in there and drop the stuff that's not working, and we get to go in there and shift this stuff in order to move forward in a different direction. And although this is the work that I do with people, I go deep into belief reprogramming, I wanted to introduce you guys to a quick tool called a pattern interrupt. So a pattern interrupt is a method used to redirect or change a person's behavior, habit, situation, or thought process. What this basically looks like is you stepping into becoming the observer of your thoughts. You know, we spend a lot of our life thinking about things that haven't happened yet. And that creates worry, anxiety, and all that could be for another podcast episode, really. But we spend a lot of our life thinking about things that we don't really need to invest or implement our energy into. Now, the counterpart of that is we also spend a lot of our lives thinking in terms of these caps or limitations or walls that we create for ourselves. So the whole world, the whole universe is at our fingertips, and we get the opportunity to create literally whatever we want. Whatever we want. Abundance is not a scarcity thing. Like, there is enough abundance in all realms to go around. But we create these little beliefs about what is possible for us because of who we are, maybe societal norm that we've deemed for ourselves, whatever it may be. And with implementing pattern interrupts into our thoughts, we're able to move forward from operating in the present state. So shifting our energetic sense of worry, anxiety, fear, all of that is low-level vibrations, and that is going to put you into a state of worrying about what's next, having anxiety oftentimes about something that hasn't even happened yet, or just the limitations that we put upon ourselves for growth. And creating these pattern interrupts is actually going into the subconscious brain, going into the subconscious programming, and figuring out what isn't working. What belief structure have you implemented that doesn't make sense? Because a lot of the stuff that we tell ourselves on default, it really doesn't make sense. It's low level, it's silly, it's not serving us, and we get to go in there and delete it. So an example of how to use these pattern interrupts is to take yourself through this little process. If you feel like you're hitting something in your business, like let's say this one's really fun, it gets to be easy. Now, that's something that most business owners don't believe. They don't actually believe that it could be easy. They don't actually believe that they could go home every day not stressed out. What they do believe is that work has to be really hard. They may not even consciously be aware that they believe this, but they do. I see it over and over and over again. And actually, it's something that I used to believe too. I didn't realize I was doing this, but I definitely had an ingrained belief in there that it had to be hard. So here's an example of a belief that's not working anymore. You know, it has to be hard. There's nothing that proves that. If I was up in a position of having to go to jail for the rest of my life, if I didn't prove that it couldn't be easy or that it had to be hard, I wouldn't be able to do it. I cannot prove that it has to be hard. So with that being said, we know that this isn't real. It's an illusion. We've created an illusion within ourselves because there's nothing that proves it. How do you figure out what your beliefs are from what your truths are? So if this was to come up of work has to be hard, and I noticed within myself, I noticed within my inner dialogue that I was telling myself, work has to be really, really hard, work has to be challenging, or entrepreneurship is overwhelming, I can ask myself a couple questions. I can ask myself, has someone told me this before? Because a lot of the way that we think just comes from other people and other thoughts that they've had that we've downloaded into our own brains, and we haven't given ourselves an opportunity to decide if it was something that we wanted to believe. It happened pretty much unconsciously. So we can ask ourselves, has someone told me this before? The next question that we can ask ourselves is this a belief or a truth? Not all beliefs are true. So it's really, really simple. Going back to that, explanation of like, if you were to go to jail because you couldn't prove this to be true, would you go to jail? Right? Like, I cannot prove to you that entrepreneurship has to be hard. There's nothing that I can do to prove that to you. The next question that we can ask ourselves from here is, if I was operating from my highest or greatest self, what might she or he believe instead? This gives us the opportunity to become almost lie detectors with ourselves into what we're operating from, what programming we're operating from, and if our decision making and if the energy we're bringing into our life is serving us or if it's not. So if you feel like you have been hitting walls or you feel like you're, creating your own limitations for yourself, I highly recommend implementing some of these questions. I'm going to read them out to you again. If you need to, write them down, put them in your notes app, put them as a reminder on your calendar, because the more curious you get about yourself, the more you will realize the power that you have to create the world and the life that you want. So 3 examples of these pattern interrupts look like: has someone told me this before? Is this a belief or a truth? And if I was operating from my highest or greatest self, what might she or he believe instead? I hope this little tip helps you to decrease your stress, to show up fully to your business, and to step into your next level of expansion. Until next week's episode, chat later.
Thanks for listening. As you put these concepts and practices into action, you'll begin to see the benefits of living an abundantly clear life. To connect with Malorie and other high performers, join the Abundantly Clear Entrepreneurs community on Facebook or visit malorie-nicole.com.